So perfect. So right now we are in Grange Subway, but a couple things have changed since the men were down here in 1917. So we're just going to talk about that so we can properly envision how the tunnels looked just over 100 years ago. And then we're going to have a chance, we're going to walk along and stop a little further along. There's an intersection with another tunnel to our left and some stairs to our right. We're going to stop there and talk a little bit more about how the tunnels were dug and used. But the differences, first of all, small though the tunnels are, at the time they were even smaller, only about 1 meter to 1.5 meters wide, so quite a bit narrower. It would have been impossible for us to have 2 rows of people in this tunnel. They would have had to go single file. The other difference is they have these concrete supports and the metal grating in the ceiling. These exist for our safety nowadays. At the time, the chalk walls were sufficient to hold the shape of the tunnel, and in areas where the ground had been fractured by bombardment or mining, wooden supports were used, but much less frequently than these concrete ones. And the last major difference we need to keep in mind as we walk along this tunnel is the light. The electric lighting that they had in this tunnel in 1917 was much less bright than the modern electric lights we have. But we can get an accurate sense of how dark it would have been with our emergency lighting. So if it's all right with everyone, we're going to turn off our main lights, and we're going to just see how dark it would have been to be waiting down here for the Vimy Ridge offensive in 1917. So in just a moment, we're going to turn the lights back on, and we're going to have a chance to walk along the tunnel and really follow in those soldiers' footsteps. But as we're following in their shoes, I want everyone to imagine that they're down here in 1917, waiting in the dark and the damp, feeling the ground shake from the bombardment that's been lasting for weeks, hearing the sounds of those shells exploding above, and knowing that when they leave this tunnel, they will be facing a battle, for some of those soldiers, for the very first time, and for many others, the very last. So if we can just follow Cedric along to that intersection, and we're going to stop there and talk a little bit. Steve, how deep are we here? So right now we're about 8 meters underground. So if I can just squeeze by here. So we can all just kind of crowd into this little area here. So yeah, we're about 8 meters underground right now. Down here we have a dead-end tunnel called the Black Watch, because this is where the 42nd Black Watch Highlanders of Canada waited for the attack to begin on April 9th. We can also see the cart and the tracks that existed in this tunnel as well at the time to move supplies back and forth and to help remove the spoil from the face of the tunnel. So it's important to remember that although the Battle of Vimy Ridge is very important for Canadians and it's a very significant event, it wasn't just Canadians who served here. These tunnels weren't actually dug by Canadians at all. Most of the miners and the tunneling companies here were actually Welsh. There were Canadian tunneling companies, but they mostly served north of here at Ypres. So these tunnels were dug by people who in their civilian life were professional miners. So they worked in Welsh coal mines, or they worked digging sewers under the city of London. And they were enlisted into the army and used in tunneling companies for their professional experience and their skill. And they were actually paid 6 times more than a regular soldier because of their professionalism and also the dangers associated with digging these tunnels, from cave-ins and poisonous gases, and of course the regular horrors of the First World War that all soldiers had to face. And like I said before, it wasn't just for transportation and communication. There were also tunnels being dug for combat. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're actually going to have a chance to go see the entrance to one of those deep fighting tunnels. So in 1915, when the front line stabilized and the war really became a stalemate, the German military was actually the first to try undermining the other trenches. They would dig a tunnel underneath the Allied positions, fill it with explosives, and then blow that mine up, leaving a massive crater instead of a strong point. We're going to have a chance to see some of the craters when we leave the tunnels in just a few minutes. But in this area, the German and at the time French armies were digging counter tunnels to try and stop each other. But when the British arrived in this sector in 1916, they brought with them their professional miners, who actually dug tunnels quite a bit faster than the German miners, because the German pioneer companies made no effort to incorporate civilian skills into the military. So the British were able to seize the upper hand, digging tunnels under this area, digging listening tunnels to try and listen in and hear where the German miners were working, and then dig interception tunnels to fill with explosives to destroy German tunnels, or even to encounter them underground and have a battle fought in the dark by the miners with picks and knives and pistols. So we can imagine how difficult it would have been to face combat here, deep underground, far away from the light and the sun. So we're going to go up this way and have a chance to look at the entrance to one of those tunnels. So again, it's just really damp up here, so be careful on the stairs. If you don't want to climb an extra set of stairs, that's fine. We're just going to head up the stairs, down to the end of the hall, look to our left. There's the entrance to the tunnel. Take a look, take a picture. And we're going to have to turn around and come back. We'll all meet up back here, okay? And it's also very low, so be careful. So it's right down there at the end of the hall. Look to our left, you'll see the sat point, and then turn around and come back, okay? We're just going to regroup down and talk about stairs. Okay? Yeah, the one that's the film projector here. So in terms of what still exists today, this section we went through is about 150 meters. It continues back that way for about 60 to 100 meters, and then it's blocked off. The rest of about a kilometer back to the highway no longer exists. And in terms of underground fighting tunnels, there's actually a network of about 19 kilometers of tunnels down there. Because to defend this section up front, by the end of 1916, the British tunnelers basically dug a parallel gallery all across the front. So almost like a trench, but underground, parallel to trenches, to prevent German efforts to undermine where we are right now. And a lot of those tunnels do still exist. Some places they're caved in, other places they're flooded. They're all closed off to the public. And of the other 12 subways here, I know that at least the one parallel this one next over, the Goodman subway, still exists. Not restored state, not open to the public. As for the others, I don't know about their state. There's also 2 German tunnels that linked some of their dugouts on the other side of the ridge together. The Prince Arnulf and I can't remember the name for the other one, but I believe at least one of those, we're not even exactly sure where it is, and the other one is, again, not accessible.
Have all the tunnels now been explored?
So there's a group called the Duran Group, and they're formed of former military officers, miners, explorers. They're really selective. It's a really small group, and they're the ones who explored a lot of the caverns and caves and tunnels in this area. And they've said that they'll explore as far as they can, but quite a lot of it's caved in or blocked off. And they've done some exploring and cleared some cave-ins just to see what there is. So they have explored a great amount of the tunnels in this area, but still not all the tunnels that were dug during the First World War. So now, I want us to go back to 1917. We're waiting down here, those 950 Canadian soldiers waiting for that attack. Down here in the dark and the damp, for up to 36 hours before the assault began. Just feeling that anxiety mount as they wait down here with no hot food, not allowed to smoke, just waiting, feeling that anxiety build. And then at about 4:30 in the morning on April 9th, they left by the same stairs that we're going to use in a moment. That final meter of earth was uncovered to open up the tunnel, and they went out into the forward observation trench that we're going to see in just a few moments. They were given their customary shot of rum for before an offensive. Then at about 5:30 in the morning, they went over the top to face the German guns. If we can look around at our group around us, if we were those soldiers, about 1/3 of us would be killed or wounded in that coming attack. So if we can imagine what it would look like, if 1/3 of our group here would not be able to safely go back to our cars and drive back to our homes after we leave this tunnel here today. And watch our heads, it's very low at the end, and the stairs are also very damp and slippery. And if I can get the last person to close the door behind us at the top, okay? They would have been shot. Would have just been excavated, but they came down a cement floor. Steve, vous levé? Je suis sorti d'ici là avec mes 15 visiteurs ici. Can't forget about that. Before the attack, this section would have been manned by about 8 soldiers. So 2 men in each listing post, just keeping an eye out on what the other army was actually up to. The morning of April 9th, soldiers of the 3rd Division waited in these trenches before going over the top. But just like our tunnels, some things are different about our trenches nowadays. These are concrete replicas of sandbags, not the original sandbags that would line the trench walls. Also concrete replicas of the duckboards under our feet. Originally, these would have been... still exposed to bombardments, to mud, to rain, to snow, to the heat in August, and to the rats, before eventually returning to a rear position, to actually live in a house or a barn, to actually have hot food and hot showers, to clean them and to sleep, and to train and prepare for their eventual return here to the front for those 4 long years of war. So we can imagine the absolutely appalling conditions experienced by those soldiers here, and the appalling losses suffered by all the armies in the First World War. And that's what we're here today to remember, the loss and the sacrifice of those men here 100 years ago. The 60,000 Canadians who died here in France and in Belgium. The 2,400 Canadians who died here at Vimy Ridge in one single day. And the 11,285 Canadians who died here in France and have no known final resting place. Their bodies are either interred in a cemetery like the ones we have here, under a headstone that reads "Unknown Soldiers of the Great War, known unto God," or their bodies still lie somewhere out on a battlefield, just like this one. And it's those 11,285 names that are engraved on our monument here at Vimy, to act as their final monument, as they have no known resting place of their own. So thanks very much for coming on my visit with me today. I hope everyone has a chance to go check out the restored German trenches, the 2 cemeteries we have on site, and of course, the monument itself. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask me or any of my colleagues, okay?
Thank you. Very good, brilliant.